Welcome to a new Daily Top Askreddit video. Today's topic:
Ex-prisoners, how are killers of child sex offenders treated? Ex-CO here. Knew a couple inmates that were incarcerated for murdering child molesters. They're treated like any other murderer. Prison isn't a TV show. Appreciate that answer. Deleted. Asking a CO about this is sorta like asking a teacher about bullying in schools. They're not totally ignorant, but there's lots they don't actually know about what's going on. Had a sentence for a year when I got framed. They did find out the guy who framed me and did the crime, so got out early. One of the inmates was in for killing child sex offenders. He was treated the exact same as a real killer. Edit: I was half asleep, so I meant killer, not really killer. Did you get any restitution? Yeah, I was only in for a month and a half. They gave me $7,500. I don't know if that's fair, though I plan to try my best to not go to jail my life, so I haven't researched much stuff lol. I'm not an ex-prisoner, but I've spoken to lots in my previous profession. Vigilante justice might get you respect amongst the fellow prisoners, but the inevitable threat to your length of stay in prison makes it less attractive. I don't know many are willing to increase their sentence if caught just to stick it to a nonce. Of course there are exceptions. I mean, if you're already in for life, what's the difference? You'd likely lose privileges and be kept segregated from other inmates. Removed. Well, IDK about what Op asked, but this one time I was in prison, we all got to watch Toy Story and that was pretty cool. Gruel sandwiches, gruel omelets, nothing but gruel. Plus you can eat your own hair. And the worst thing about prison was the Dementors. My partner's brother went to prison for killing the man who molested him as a child and groomed my partner. He was treated pretty well here in Australia. The biggest guy in prison walked straight up to him and told him no matter what, he's got his back. And then your parents' brother did what he learned in movies and punched big guy in the face, so everyone knew what was up, right? Right! Exclamation mark. I thought that was only for teaching kindergarten. All this thread is proving is the dead internet theory. I saw a thread on this sub a few days ago where the top approximately 6 replies had usernames like CuteBaby95 and ShyVixen772. I know we all think every social media site should do better at filtering bots, but it's like Reddit isn't even trying. I had to create a throwaway account the other day, and at account setup I was surprised that Reddit itself recommended names nearly identical to what you just stated. It's almost like Reddit is making it easy for bots. Being a killer isn't the worst thing. As for child sex offenders, no one in the world likes child sex offenders. But, if you killed a child sex offender and then were incarcerated, how were they treated? Like, is there a level of respect? Or just ignored? I imagine prison being a place where you're tested at the beginning, but taking out a cockroach, would you be left alone? You would probably get some respect from some convicts, others none. For the most part, anyone with a family on the outside will appreciate you and know what you stand for, but you're still a convicted murderer at the end of the day. You won't be treated any different by cause or the legal system, but as far as the community of inmates, it's not like you wouldn't make new friends. My last cellmate was a child predator, no rape or murder, but convicted of stalking a little girl. They were elderly, demented, assumed they would be getting out soon, I'm waiting on the paperwork, etc. I was kind to them out of basic respect, but they didn't really have friends, or anyone to trade, play, or do activities with. Never got any calls, visits, but at least had commissary money. Most people just left them alone. They're going to die a long death in there. Prison justice does serve a place in the collective, but it's not something to throw away your life on the outside for. It's something done by people already there with no hope of life again on the outside. Personally, I see it as a last chance at redemption for the soul. As you said, even convicts don't like child abusers. I was told about a guy from a CO at my state's penitentiary who was incarcerated because he killed a man attempting to molest his own granddaughter. He had an "it is what it is" attitude and was respected enough that nobody in the prison would do anything to him. Nobody was going out of their way to help him, but everyone knew he was just off limits in that way. I'm a lawyer and I've been doing prison legal aid all over the country for about 25 years. Sadly, child sex crimes cross all economic boundaries, so we get a lot of middle and upper class inmates who are accustomed to filling out paperwork and dealing with bureaucracy who utilize those legal aid services. That is to say, I've represented shitloads of these guys, more than any other category of crime, by far, so I know far more about their place in prison than I would like. In my experience, all the honor among thieves stuff that people like to talk about, where child molesters are treated poorly by other inmates and inmates who attack them are lionized, is all bullshit. I've had clients who have done absolutely abhorrent things to vulnerable people, women, the elderly, their own family members, and children, but other inmates don't care. Child molesters don't get any particular respect, nobody's looking out for them, inmate or CO, so if they're targeted, it's because of that, because nobody will care or retaliate. It's not some kind of rough justice, it's just a predator taking advantage of vulnerable prey. Part of the confusion stems from attacker inmates claiming after the fact that they were motivated by their victim's criminal history of hurting children, but that's an excuse to try to mitigate punishment, not the actual motivation for the attack. I had a guy years ago who attacked another inmate and insisted it was because his victim was a child molester, but the guy who got attacked was locked up for killing somebody while driving drunk, nothing to do with children. So, to finally answer the question, no, I don't think inmates who kill child molesters get any kind of special treatment or respect, any more than they would for killing any other inmate. I unfortunately have some knowledge of this and agree with you. My Bill went to prison for 4 years for child molestation and child pornography. His youngest victim was just 2 months old. He was in general pop and even had a job working in the prison library. He got out with not even a scratch on him. Only 4 years? ? You go into jail and looking for some instant cred, bro. I live in the South. Friend ex-partner touched one of her kids. She called the cops and took all the right AVs to get the MF out of the house. Dude was in jail 12 hours before being moved to PC, protective custody. He got the shit beat out of him. I guess my homegirl had friends who were guards and put the word out. Prisoners will always find out why you are there, it may not be a CO. Either way, just happy he is in a world of shit. His victim was sick, so I honestly feel a slow decent over a dirty chevalier is the only fitting punishment. Genuine ass question. How does everyone know what other prisoners are there for? Do they say it out loud in speakers when they come in? How does everybody know? Tons of people in prison have access to cell phones now, illegally, of course. And even if you don't, you can always ask people on the outside to Google stuff for you. So let's say you're getting a new cellmate tomorrow and you want to know what the deal is. Are they in for chopping a dude up and eating his face because they were bored, meaning you need to start making a protective shank, like yesterday? Or are they in for expertly trafficking high-quality heroin, meaning you're about to be rolling in cigarettes and first-class smack? So you Google their case records and see that they are a convicted sex offender, and because prison is more gossipy than an all-girls middle school, now literally everyone knows that there's a nonce on the ward. This is exactly how it happens. Either like you said or a CO. Source: unfortunately a lot of my family, friends been to prison. In my state you can look up their information on the prison site and it states all the charges. They just ask a family member to look them up. Nice try, Diddy. Back to Instagram you go. Actual real-life ex-prisoner here, in US military and federal prisons between 2007 and 2010. The same as everyone else. Not sure how much more info I can give you. Murderers are murderers. The guy that cooked up a bunch of meth and his lab exploded, killing a wife and kid. That's Nick, he's a good spades partner. The guy who is doing 20 plus for bank robbery that stabbed another inmate. That's Eric, he loves soap operas and WWE. The little guy that raped a woman, but he claims it's spousal rape so it doesn't count and he shouldn't be there. That's Derek, he's also got a tattoo rig and will ink you up for a few books of stamps. Conversely, Mike was on To Catch a Predator, and everyone calls him Cookie because in his episode, he came in and took a cookie from the plate on the counter. No one really talks to him, he just hangs out with the other child molesters, kiddie porn addicts, and other sexual deviants. Prison isn't television. Sometimes art imitates life, but most of the time it doesn't. They get a little street credit but they ain't treated like royalty. Correctional facilities are responsible for every inmate's safety regardless of the crime. Unless you committed a high-profile crime or called a family member, friend to Google another inmate to see what they are in for. The other inmates don't know who is and who isn't a sex offender. If their crimes become public knowledge among the population, they are usually just threatened by other inmates in their pod or housing unit to pay rent, i.e., give up a set amount of their commissary. There is a federal law called the Prison Rape Elimination Act that requires the prison to take certain precautions with sex offenders or SA victims to prevent sexual abuse of both. There is also protective custody where you basically get a cell by yourself so no one hurts you. Those who owe rent that can't pay often go into PC until they can pay the debt or be moved to a different facility, pod. The prison justice portrayal of sex offenders isn't accurate. The golden rules are to do your own time and don't be a snitch. Other inmates just prefer to intimidate sex offenders using that inaccurate portrayal so they get free shit on commissary day and don't get write-ups or put in seg. This is very insightful, thank you. So, I ended up in a NY state prison for 3 years for a low-level crime. Not a sex offense, by the way. After a quick stay in reception I was transported to a place called Groveland Prison. Low-level security. This was like a college dorm with free movement. You literally sign out of your dorm and go lay in the sun, lift weights, play some sort of outdoor sports, walk to the library, etc. The place was filled with sex offenders, drunk drivers, thieves and other inmates with not much time to do. For the most part, everyone minded their own business because we all wanted to go home soon. The only ones that really didn't do well were the inmates that have served a shitload of time and are on the tail end of their sentence. So they get sent to places like Groveland to finish out the time. When you come from a maximum security with your own cell and TV and are suddenly thrust into dorm-style living, it's not a good combo. A very hard adjustment for most of them, but hey, they want a chance to go home soon too. But yeah, all of us were mixed in together, and for the most part you know what every is in for. Again, we minded our business because we were all short-timers and wanted to get the hell out of there. Basically all prisons are different and you shouldn't believe everything you see on TV or movies.